Okay, questions on any of those areas? Excellent. Financial regulations. We were talking about how there's no legislated BCP, COOP, or DR standard for the private sector en toto. Is that true for the financial sector? No. It's one of the most regulated sectors in our culture. Have you played with any of these before? No? Okay. Start with the federal BCP booklet. It talks about what your plan should be, what it should include. It's a general guide of these things should be included in the plan. There is a rule, though, that requires that the BCP directly cover each of these areas. Once the regulators start requiring stuff, what does that mean? Why is this different than just having a definition of what a plan will be? Why does a requirement change the nature of what you have to do? Big difference between these two things?
It becomes a standard.
Yes. Yes. You've incurred liability with this second one, right? This is what you will do. Good. If you are publicly traded and you want to be on the New York Stock Exchange, they say flat out, you will have this BCP and it will be reviewed no less than annually. Another regulation, not in the financial industry, but industry specific, our good old friend HIPAA. What's HIPAA stand for? I always forget that it's portability, not privacy, right? What is it? Health Information Portability and Accountability Act, something like that?
Sounds good.
I think so. Okay. All right, good. It requires, again, that you have a backup plan, that you've got a disaster recovery plan. These are thou shalts. You will have these. That's liability, because if you don't have them and an event takes place, you are now in violation of a federal regulation, which incurs a whole bunch of costs, right? Good. Questions on the... Oh, one more slide. One more slide? Yeah, one more slide. Sorry. Case law. We haven't talked about the legal aspects yet. We're going to do that in the next module. But what does case law mean, just in general? Anybody know?
It went before the courts and there was a decision made.
Good. Excellent. We have precedent. Yeah, very, very good. There is a lot of case law about BCP. All of these topics have been already decided by the courts, which means even if legislators have not created standards by writing them down for non-financial industry, for non-medical industry, the case law will still be used as precedent to create liability against you if you do not act as a reasonable person in these cases. Meaning, that stuff is still something that you can be held accountable for. Because of that, it's good to have a good BCP program in place. Is ignorance of the law a defense? Can you say, look, I didn't know the case law. I didn't know what the regulations were. How can I be held accountable for something that wasn't published or sent to me? No. Try telling that to the cop when they pull you over. I didn't see the sign. I thought it was 55 here. What do you mean 35? What do you mean it's a school zone? What? I didn't see that. No, you are going to be held accountable. So those are things to be concerned with. Good. Questions about legal requirements for different industries? Resource requirements. What do you need to help build a good plan? Before you start doing it, when you're scoping the thing out, try to determine what the project will take in terms of money. And money you have to drill down on, because you're going to have to also account for the time that people are working. Are people assigned to a BCP team in perpetuity? Is that their full-time job? Do they become BCP FTEs? No. Who gets assigned to the team? Sadly, usually anyone in the office you can do without. But you still have to account for their time. They're still going to be spending an hour a week or 2 hours a week or 10 hours a week Different teams have to be accounted for. They're all going to be members of this BCP group, right? Are you going to pull in external consultants to build this thing? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Aren't you revealing your critical business path? Why would you use external consultants?
They may have expertise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your core business function probably isn't restoring your business. It's probably doing your business. So sometimes you want to bring folks in from the outside, and you have to account for those costs. Data collection software. This is a good place to put the cost of your backup systems. Who wants to pay for those things? Nobody ever wants to pay for those things. The IT department hates paying for those things. Why does the IT department hate paying for those things? What happens when a backup system becomes available? What do the business owners do? What do the data owners do?
Back up their MP3s.
Say that?
Back up everything.
Everything, including their MP3s, right? Hey, great, this costs me nothing. I'm going to cram everything into there. I'm not going to save anything locally because I don't have to. It's great. That's awesome. And that cost keeps escalating and snowballing. If IT can get out of that business and hand it off to BCP, they'd be thrilled. But that's another cost you have to account for when management signs off on the budget. Why would you have a travel budget associated with BCP? I mean, what the heck? They don't have to go to some Florida conference or anything, do they? They don't have to have a social gathering for team building, do they? What's travel? What's the expense in travel?
Remote site evaluation.
Yeah, remote site. If you're going to use an alternative for a warm site, cold site, hot site, they're going to have to go there and check it out, right? Plus the off-site storage. They should go there and see where the backups are being sent, right? Different members of that team. You need the folks who are actually going to be on the BCP team. You need to account for management to be a part of it. Critical staff. Who would critical staff be? Who are you tapping into as part of your BCP? What would be an example of someone who should be on the critical staff? Not necessarily on the planning team.
There's people that have to actually execute the plan.
Good.
Are running the systems or whatever.
Good. There might be certain specific users for each department in those critical functions that aren't planning it, but you pull them in times of the event, right? Excellent. Good. What kind of records? What kind of records are vital to BCP? What do you need? Wire diagram? Your current build? Architectural designs, blueprints, perhaps, software licenses, personnel locators, including home addresses, maybe, perhaps, phone numbers, certainly, right? You need current data. You need vendor contact information. You need customer catalog invoicing data. You need a lot of stuff, don't you? You got to figure out what your environment determines is vital. What are you going to need to restore? And what's going to make it easier for you to do that? And where are you going to put it? You're going to put it in your disaster relocation kit, and you're going to put it in your offsite, probably, right? What's the cost of the risk assessment? What's the cost of your BIA, your business impact analysis? Those things, very important initial part of the process, they're not free. They're not even cheap. So you need to account for that. Strategy development, again, you're not just sitting there eating pizza every Wednesday for 10 weeks, right, Mike? Mm-hmm. Good. You need to account for how you're going to pay for that alternate site if you do go that route. Pay for the documentation. Sometimes that literally means paying for the reproduction of the copies because do you want electronic copies in times of an event? Why wouldn't you want electronic copies in times of an event?
You won't be able to access them.
Yeah, if you're losing the system because of a disaster, you can't get to it, right? Sometimes that means paying Kinkos, right? And paying for testing. And we'll talk about different kinds of tests and how expensive those can get. These are all things you got to determine before you get into it.